Where did I come from? How did I become this Jamie? I'm asked this a lot, and I don't usually answer because even the short version is kind of long. But if you want to know, here it is. Here's the story of how I became me. Some of my current attributes I had right from the get-go. A couple of those are incredible stubbornness and unrelenting curiosity. Now, these kind of got me in trouble a little bit when I was a little kid. My parents may have had a bit of a difficult time with me because they used the standard parenting technique of your kid does something wrong, you punish them, which does not work well with a curious, stubborn kid because I was curious, so I would get into things that I was not supposed to get into. And then they would punish me, and I was stubborn, so I would fight back. And that's how it went for the beginning of my life. Fight, fight, fight! Now one day, when I was about 4 years old, I was being punished for something. Sit in the chair, let me yell at you, think about what you've done, you know. And my mom, at one point, just threw up her hands and sat down in just like frustration and exhaustion and like, I don't know what to do with this kid thing, you know. And she looked at me and said, Jamie, why do you do these things? And I was sitting there ready to go, and she didn't come at me with the normal attack. And I was confused. I was like, how do I fight back against this? She just came at me with reason and logic and a question, and why am I doing these things? And why are we fighting? And why do we always fight? And why do I say this? And why do other people tell me this? And why is this on the TV? And why does gravity go down instead of up? And why do magnets have two poles but gravity only has one? And why, just why everything? And I sat there and I said, I don't know. But I was already not even there. I was off on this journey of why. And just over time from that moment, I spent more and more time inside my brain asking why everything. And that why is what started everything I'm about to tell you. I was spending all this time figuring out why everything, and I was getting all this information, all these answers from outside that were not correct. And I would sit there and think, no, that's not why that. You're telling me that. Why are you telling me that? Oh, that's for a totally other reason. Oh, wait, that's not why that either. And it was just too much of a distraction to really be able to think clearly, so I decided I needed to find my own place where I could think to myself with no outside influence whatsoever. So I created this little black box universe inside my head. And the black box universe was a 1 meter cube. And that was the entire universe. The edge of the cube, like the side of the cube, that was the end of the universe. There was no space beyond that. And the entire universe was just inside this cube. There was space and me. There was no light or anything. That was it. Just space and me. And I could sit there and think. My first version of the black box universe had like the walls where you could actually put your hand into the wall and it would resist. I mean, there was no resistance. But then when you pulled your hand back, like whatever went through would be gone. So, you know, it was a very easy way to lose virtual limbs. So I was like, wait, I need to change that. So I made the edge like infinitely rigid, like where it wouldn't flex at all. It wouldn't even vibrate or make a sound if you hit it. It was just, anyway. Black box universe. So I would spend a lot of time in this black box universe, and I made this kind of simple auto Jamie that would just interact with the world and placate people, so they wouldn't keep saying, "Where are you, man? What are you doing? What are you thinking about? Where are you? Why didn't you come back?" You know. So placation Jamie was out there doing his automatic thing, and I would spend a lot of time, an increasing amount of time, in my black box thinking. And there were two main things I was doing inside this black box. One was I was exploring the universe. I know I was inside this little thing. How could I explore the universe out there? Well, you can actually see more with your mind than you can with your eyes. Put it this way. No one stumbled upon how to split the atom out here in the world. It wasn't like when someone figured out magnetism and it was just an accidental thing they had on their table and said, oh, hey, look. No one was sitting there and said, oh, thermonuclear explosion. Oh, hey, and then died, couldn't tell anyone. No, someone had to go inside their head, inside their imagination, and learn something about the world out here that was not observable out here. So, trying to explain more than that, I would have to get into like hours-long explanation. But basically, I spent a lot of time inside my head exploring the universe. The other thing I did was I was trying to just break down my own barriers. Just learn more about my mind and how it worked and what it can do. And I feel like in school, I was always taught what I can't do, which is why I'm not a huge fan of most schools. But anyway, I spent a lot of time learning what I can do and figuring out how to do more things. To give a quick example of this, again, I would have to go into like months-long explanation to even scratch the surface. But one exercise that I would do is, here, do this. You just do it. Imagine yourself standing in a field, and then start running, and then jump in the air, do a flip, land back on your feet. Now, I don't know how other people's brains work because I haven't really talked to other people a lot about this, but for my brain anyway, it was easy to do that from a dream perspective. Like the video game thing where you see your character in front of you, and you can run down the field, do a flip, land, but your perspective was kind of locked into the scene, so your perspective isn't moving. So that's easy to do. But getting first-person perspective, and so there's you there, but just actually get in to yourself, and there you are. You're the guy. You're looking out the eyeballs. Your perspective is from the body. Now, start running in your field. Jump, do a flip, and then land back on your feet. And don't lose resolution of the universe while you're doing this. The tricky part here is that when you do the flip, the entire rest of the universe has to rotate around you. You can just kind of ignore it for a second while you do the flip and then have the universe come back after. But no, to do the exercise, you have to maintain the universe, the virtual universe, while you do the flip. And that was difficult, and I learned a trick to get around that was to have no fixed objects. So just get rid of that whole fixed objects thing. So I didn't have to have a perspective that was kind of stuck to anything. It could be stuck to, there was nothing to stick my perspective to things. And I did that by screaming inside my head. And if I screamed inside my head, it vibrated the virtual particles in the virtual universe and put it all into flux. So it made it less tangible than it already was. It's just imaginary stuff anyway. But it put it in flux so it could change. There was no more fixed perspective. So that's, one out of tons and tons of exercises I would do in my head to practice and get more capabilities and stuff. And I spent an increasing amount of time inside this black box between the ages of 4, 5 to 10, around there. I was spending a lot of time inside my black box, but I was still living a life, kind of, mostly through an automatic Jamie who just placated people. And I can't say I had the happiest childhood. It started out pretty cool, but then there was a lot of sadness and resentment around me, and it's not an uncommon story. This is a fairly common thing, unfortunately, in our culture. And one day, when I was 10, I believe, something particularly saddening and frustrating and just crappy happened, and it was just I guess you could say it was the straw that broke the camel's back. And I came out of my black box and came to check what was going on, and there I am, just crying tears, just feeling so bad and just sad and terrible. And I was trying to do something that wasn't working, and I was trying to help someone, and I came out of my black box and said, okay, no, this isn't okay. We need to go a step away from this. So I walked away and I put my head against a window and looked outside. And I said, okay, well, what's going on here? Something is wrong with this life. It's not worth living right now. So we need to change something. So I looked at the graph of my happiness, miserableness level, and neutral's in the middle, and it was like all down here. It was maybe blip above neutral a little bit once in a while, but it was like almost all in the unhappy zone, in the sad zone, in the miserable zone. So I decided that it wasn't worth having emotions if they were going to be almost all in the sad part. Like, even if you're bipolar, you still at least get the ups and the downs, but I was just too many downs. I wouldn't say I was depressed, because I wasn't like giving up on life or like losing motivation or anything, because I was a very motivated person still. It was just this thing. I had this thing in me, this emotions thing that was not being utilized well. It was just causing problems. And through all my meditations and stuff, I'd learned to have a lot of control over my mind and my emotions and my physiology and stuff. And I decided that emotional processing unit would be much more useful to me in my black box than it would be to this guy trying to deal with the human world, because he's just being made miserable. So I decided to disconnect the entire emotional thing in my mind. Now I didn't like turn it off or suppress it. I like formatted the drive, as this was something I was able to do at this time through all this meditation for years. And I left a note on it. So instead of emotions, I had a note that said, do things that you would have wanted to do when you had emotions. So that would replace my, normally you'd have your emotions to motivate you. So now I just had this like one directive to motivate me, to kind of guide me in what I was doing in my life. So I did that, turned off the emotions just like that, wiped away my tears, and that was it. There was no more emotional content in my thoughts for years. And what this did, obviously besides having no more emotions, it freed up this huge chunk of processing power inside my brain. Because like your emotional thing in there, it processes a lot of stuff. And when you experience things, all this information comes at you, and parts of your brain process it and then kind of spit out simplified versions for your like upper consciousness to understand and then to decide what to do. But I'd already gotten to a point where I was operating in like the subconscious levels, so I could see it all happening, and I just hadn't interfered with it too much at that point. But then I took this whole emotional processing unit, which was way more powerful than just my upper consciousness, and I said, okay, I'm going to start using that in my my meditations. For about 5 years, I spent all my time meditating. I was still kind of, interacting with the world with my autopilot guy. People thought I was kind of weird, but that was fine. As long as they weren't trying to throw me in a loony bin or arrest me, I didn't care. And I also, since I had that directive that said do things that I would have wanted to do, I was exercising and eating well and taking care of my physical self while I was off on these meditation journeys. Now, one of the exercises I did, out of a lot of different things, one of the exercises I did was difficult to explain in English, but I'm going to do my best. Take a point and stretch it out infinitely that way. So a ray, like one line. Whoosh. Now take that line and spread it out into a cone, and as it spreads, collect the entire universe. And as it comes around and is collecting everything, in the universe, and it comes around and just kind of encloses everything and like warps everything, and there's the universe right there. Now the way you have to do this, you can't just squish the universe. You have to more like warp your own perspective. So basically, it's like taking your perspective and wrapping it around an infinitely large universe and then seeing it from there. And that's the best way I can explain it. But anyway, if you actually do it right, you get this, you get your golf ball universe. It's not actually a golf ball. And then if you look around, you'll see there are, from that perspective, because you didn't change the universe, you just change your perspective. But from that perspective, there are infinitely more golf balls around. There are infinitely more of these universes around. And then you can do the same exercise with that, because just as you gathered up the first universe, you collected all the atoms and all the everything. Well, these golf balls are kind of like the atoms of this next universe. Well, you do your line and spread it out and collect all of that, and then it's just like, oh, now you've got your golf ball that has the infinite number of golf balls in it, that has our entire universe in it. Okay, now there's just more golf balls, and every time I would collect all of that and alter my perspective to wrap around all that, then it was just kind of the same thing. Now every layer there was something, I guess something to learn, kind of. There was something new in some way, but it was always there was a pattern to it. And as far as I could guess at the time, the pattern would go on infinitely, and I would play this game where I would basically expand my consciousness to be encompassing greater and greater stuff. And I would do this thing. I would set it up to go infinitely, and then infinitely and infinitely, and then through infinite numbers of dimensions. And I'm so tired of the word infinity, because in my brain it's like that word's trying to cover too many different meanings. But anyway, one day I took my line and stretched it through, and I've been working on this for a while, and I was trying to collect everything and the next golf balls and the next golf balls and everything all at once. And I've been working on trying to do that. But so I did the thing, I collected the whole universe and got it, and I looked around for the other golf balls, and there were no other golf balls. Like, I got it. I got everything. So I took my perspective and my awareness, or whatever you want to call it, and I expanded it to a point where it could encompass all of existence and non-existence and possibility and impossibility, and just everything. Like the most profound meaning of the word everything. Like it was everywhere, all at once. And I could say all through space and time, but that was just a drop. It wasn't even a drop in the bucket. When you get to this perspective and you see everything. Anyway, I also experienced, when I did this last one and I collected and got everything. Oh, people are watching this being like, this guy is crazy. Anyway, I also had this very strong feeling, which was weird because I turned my emotions off like years ago when I was kind of like hacking them to do some other stuff. But I got this very clear feeling. It was very distinct, different than any other feeling. It would be kind of like if you suddenly saw another prime color. You'd be like, whoa, what is that? Where did that come from? I don't even know how to describe that. So yeah, it was just this feeling, but it was very distinct. So I think it was somehow part of our development in the past. Like, I think people were doing this process where they would kind of gain this enlightenment of sorts. And I think it was part of our evolutionary past. And just because it had such a clear, I had such a clear physiological reaction associated with it. Like, I don't think that would have just accidentally happened. I think it evolved to be a thing, But I think it was an evolutionary dead end. And I'll tell you why. It's because from that perspective, I gained incredible, abilities, just mentally. Like I could basically do anything with my mind and see anything and understand anything, just like that. But I didn't care. Like it was so distant from anything to do with being a human being or being alive or a biological thing or even a physical thing or even existing, or I mean, it was just from that perspective, nothing mattered. Nothing. Actually, just nothing mattered. It was just. It was like turning up mind all the way and turning spirit off. There was no caring. And, life or death didn't matter. I didn't care if I lived or died. The only thing that was keeping me alive at that point was my directive that I slipped in when I turned off my emotions. To keep doing what you would want to have done when you had emotions. And I was still following that. And I found that I could do this multiple times. And, I could do the same brain exercise, expand my awareness to everything, and I would get the same emotional reaction, and it never decreased. It wasn't like something I got used to. Every time it was very vivid and blam! But there was also no point to it, because I didn't care. It was just something I was observing. So at that point, I tried to figure out where to go next with my thinking, like with my meditations and stuff, and I couldn't find anywhere else to go. It was like I was in this race that I thought would just keep going forever, and then suddenly I accidentally crossed this finish line, and I was outside of the race, and I couldn't get back in, and there was nowhere to go anymore. And I called that the end of thinking. That was the end of thinking. It happened in the back seat of a car when I was driving through Hamilton when I was 15 years old. I took a mental note just in case I wanted to remember it for something. Anyway, I basically had nothing else to do at that point, nothing else to meditate on, nothing else to think about. It was the end of thinking. So I decided, okay, I'm going to devote 2 months to figuring out where I can go from here. Like, what the next step in this thing is. And I'm just going to presume that there is a next step, but I never found one. That was just the end as far as I could find. So, to make a long story short, I decided, since I had nothing else to do there, that I would come back to Earth and be a human. So, I decided to become a human and actually experience this thing. Since I already had this body, it was doing the thing, it was there on Earth, whatever. It was just running on autopilot at the time, so why not live a life? The problem was I crossed too many lines that are uncrossable. I didn't have a human perspective at all anymore. Like, even just, I didn't even have like a biological perspective. Like, survival instincts didn't exist. If you jumped out and scared me, I would have no reaction. Not that I suppressed it, I just wouldn't have a reaction. I didn't feel fear, I didn't feel happiness, or I was not a human being, and I couldn't, and I'd done too many things to get away from that perspective that I couldn't get back to it. So I decided to, you know what it was like? This is what it was like. It was like playing a video game and having all the cheat codes and being unable to turn them off. So suddenly you're playing in God mode, and you can just walk through the walls and get to the end, and it's like, oh, yay, great. Finished that one. Okay, next level. Oh, yeah. Got to the end again. Great. It's just, there's no point. So anyway, I did have, since I had all of these skills, I did have the ability to go into my mind and find the thing that started up my original mind. So basically, when I was a baby, this mind started. So I rebooted that and just made a second guy. And that I'm gonna call second Jamie. That's me. That's this guy here. I was like, at least mentally, I was born when I was 15 years old. The Cosmic Jamie. I call the first one Cosmic Jamie because he's everywhere all the time and has all the answers. He doesn't tell me the answers, and I understand why. And when Cosmic Jamie made me, this sounds ridiculous. Anyway, this is what happened. I'm sorry. It's weird, but when Cosmic Jamie made me, he put little markers on things, like in my mind, so that I wouldn't do the same things he did, because that would be pointless. So he said, okay, don't go here. Like if I meditate in my head, I have like very clear ideas of where I should and shouldn't go. Things that will make my life as a human better, but won't. Yeah, basically that's what it is. He set up all these things so that I would have a better human life. I wouldn't say necessarily barriers, more like guidelines. There are a few barriers where it's like, do not, under any circumstance, go past this point. And I just trust it, because I'm like, well, that guy knew what he was talking about. So I rebooted this baby mind. And at first it was useless, because it was like a baby. And it was actually kind of interesting being a conscious adult observing this development at first. It took about 2 years before I had my own first emotion. It wasn't just like kind of imitating other people. And at first it was just like happy, sad, like good, bad. It was just binary emotions, good or bad, and that was it. And then as time went on, it kind of became more complex. And now I have all the regular emotions and stuff, except the ones I really hate. I suppress them. I don't turn them off anymore. I just suppress them. Anyway, I slowly scaled back the automatic placating Jamie as this baby Jamie grew up and became more competent. And Cosmic Jamie at first ran a tight ship, kept track of everything, and made sure it was all going well. But then he kind of slowly stepped back and was like, "Okay, I think I got it." And now he's basically gone. I mean, he's like always there, but Cosmic Jamie doesn't control me or run my life or anything. He doesn't really do anything because he has nothing to do. Sometimes I go ask him stuff, and he usually just gives me tips and hints here and there. Nothing that'll ruin the experience of being a human. So he won't give me like cheat codes or anything, that kind of thing. But he did give me some of the perspective that he has. So, for example, I have this huge reservoir of imagination and problem-solving skills, and I love using them. And part of the reason I love using them is because I have challenges. One thing I have a lot of difficulty though with is relating to other human beings, because I have this other perspective where most people, I do. Yeah, that's a totally true statement. I do have difficulty relating to other people. Because most people are trying to find ways to do less. So they want to pay someone to do their work for them, or find some easier way to do it, or get some machine to do it, or find some way they don't have to do stuff. But the entire premise of my existence is that I am here to experience things. I am here to screw up and to succeed. I'm here to go talk to girls and embarrass myself. I'm here to be afraid. I'm here to feel joy and sadness and happiness. I'm here to experience stuff. So I often have conversations, and anyone who watches this channel has probably seen this in the comments or wherever, where people will say, "Oh, dude, all you need is a thing, then you won't have to do that." And I'm just like, but I want to do it. I want to mix my concrete. I don't want to pay someone else to do it. I want to dig stuff. I don't want to just hire 40 guys to come and flatten out. I want to experience things, because if I just outsource everything I have to do, then what do I have to do? Then I'll just be in Cosmic Jamie's predicament, where he had nothing to do. So I'm here. I'm this guy. I want to experience things. So I often jump into things face first without even any planning or anything. And when I was in school, I would do this a lot, where I would go to exams having studied not at all, not even attending class or anything. I would just show up and be like, bring it on! And then I would figure out whatever I needed to figure out, and it was challenging, and that's what I like. I like throwing myself into difficult situations. The real life ones are much more interesting and rewarding than the boring school stuff. But anyway, I like to get myself into situations where I don't know what I'm doing, and I don't sit there and plan it all out before. I like to be lost. I like to get myself into situations where I'm going to be challenged. So hopefully that kind of explains me. Because I know there's some confusion with some people who are asking me things like, dude, how do you think? It's so weird. As soon as I've got you figured out, then you do something that makes no sense at all. Well, hopefully this explains where I'm coming from.